How's it going, guys? In this video we're going to be doing something a little bit different, right? We're going to be choosing 10 UFC fighters and deciding who they would be if they were in the One Piece world. I don't know how many of my One Piece fans out there like the UFC, but it is always something I very much enjoyed. I love the drama, the action, the intensity. It is such a fun sport. I absolutely love it. And there's a lot of things about the sport that actually remind me a lot about anime, right? Like the way there's so many different characters. They all have like special abilities, special skills, weaknesses. It is almost like a real life action anime in the world of sports, right? In the real world, right? Anyway, don't forget to subscribe if you are not. Drop a like on the video if you enjoy it. Depending on how this video does, I might make a part 2. Comment if you agree with some of my choices or if you disagree. 10 UFC fighters if they were One Piece characters. Let's go! Alright, so for number 1, we got the Style Bender, Israel Adesanya. Izzy is a phenomenal kickboxer who is a master at controlling range and counterpunching. He rarely ever gets hit cleanly. He is very smooth with his movement, right? And also incredibly agile. Therefore, I think the One Piece character that he would be is none other than Charlotte Katakuri. Katakuri is a top commander of the Big Mom Pirates. He's incredibly powerful, but his greatest skill, as we all know, is his ability to see the future while he fights, allowing him to predict his opponent's next move and beat them to the punch every time, making him an extremely effective counter puncher. He's also extremely agile, like when he fought Luffy in Snake Man form, he was dodging all of Luffy's incredibly fast attacks. So I personally feel that in terms of fighting style, I think Israel Adesanya and Charlotte Katakuri are a perfect match, and that is who Izzy would be if he was in the One Piece world. Number 2, the Predator, Francis Ngannou. Francis is literally a destroyer god incarnate. He is enormous, yet he looks like he was sculpted by titanium or something like that. He has insane power in his hands. He is the most intimidating fighter in the UFC, hands down, right? So for these reasons, I think that if Francis was in One Piece, he would be none other than Kaido himself, General of the Beast Pirates, and Eater of the mythical dragon fruit, literally making him a true monster, right? So I think Francis is the perfect fit for Kaido, right? They both have incredible power. They're both extremely intimidating, right? Absolutely nobody wants to mess with them, and he can pretty much one-shot 99.9% of the entire One Piece world. I think this one's a given, right? Francis Ngannou is Kaido in the One Piece world. Number 3, Chris Cyborg. So Chris Cyborg is one of the scariest and most intimidating women to ever grace the octagon, right? She's taken some L's in the past, but she is still crazy powerful and is just built different. Her body structure simply shouldn't be possible, right? She really is a monster of a lady. Therefore, on this list, if she was in One Piece, she would be none other than Charlotte Linlin, aka Big Mom, who is easily the most powerful woman in all of One Piece. She's a force to be reckoned with, right? She's the captain of the Big Mom Pirates, the queen of Toto Land, and even most men fear her. So I think her and Cyborg have a lot in common. Number 4, George St. Pierre. GSP is probably on most people's list as pound for pound #1 fighter of all time. He may not be as big and strong as someone like Francis Ngannou, but he was an extremely well-rounded martial artist who had a lot of honor and truly felt like a real superhero, right? He could defeat you in a multitude of ways, knockout submissions, outlasting you. He was the total package and is considered the best of all time by many. For those reasons, I would say that if he was a One Piece character, he would be Gold D. Roger himself, right? Roger's the literal king of the pirates and is what characters in the show all strive to be. He is the pinnacle of what can be accomplished and was a legendary figure in the world of One Piece. He had mastered all forms of hockey and possessed incredible unrivaled power and will go down as the greatest who ever lived. Number 5, Jon Bones Jones. Johnny Bones Jones is the darker version of GSP. And I don't mean literally. Jon Jones is considered the GOAT by many as well, and possibly has a case for being over GSP as the greatest of all time. But Jon Jones was caught multiple times, allegedly, right, for performance-enhancing drugs, a few violent criminal acts, right, allegedly, right, but anyway, since GSP is the GOAT, and he's a good guy, I believe Jon Jones is the GOAT, but he's kind of like a bad guy, right? He's a villain. So I believe that Jon Jones would be none other than Rox D. Zabek. That's right, Rox D. Zabek. He is the evil GOAT. Am I right? So I think that's a good fit. Rox D. Zabek is a legendary, infamous, notorious pirate, possibly the strongest pirate to ever live. Maybe besides Goldie Roger. We don't know all the facts yet, but I do know that Gold Roger had to team up with the world government just to take out Rox D. Zabek and his crew. So I know Rox D. Zabek had to be extremely powerful, but he was a bad guy, so that's why I feel like him and Jon Jones are the perfect fit. If Jon Jones was in One Piece, he would be Rox D. Zabek. Number 6, Charles do Bronx Oliveira. Charles might not look it, but he is an overwhelming force of unbreakable will. He dominates his opponents with his will alone. He can beat you standing up, striking. He can ground and pound you into dust, or just force you to submit from his overwhelming pressure. If he was a One Piece character, he would be Red-Haired Shanks. Red-Haired Shanks is possibly the strongest current character in One Piece and has a reputation for having one of the strongest wills in the form of his godly Conqueror's Haki that can break any man it comes in contact with, even someone who is a Navy Admiral, which we saw at the end of Wano. Shanks is not one to be messed with, and even though he seemed like the smallest and weakest of the 4 emperors, new evidence now suggests that he is likely the most powerful of them all. The epitome of don't judge a book by its cover, which I feel is something that resonates very well with Charles Oliveira. You look at Charles Oliveira, you don't think this guy is possibly one of the greatest fighters of all time, but then you see him fight and you see what he can do, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy is a beast. So that's why I think Charles Oliveira is a good fit with Red-Haired Shanks. Number 7, Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Dustin is a great fighter who can defeat his opponents in a multitude of ways, right? He's been close to becoming champion on several occasions, but always ends up in second place, right? He always plays second fiddle to the champion. He can never quite get to the very top, but we all know he's an absolute beast, right? For these reasons, I feel that the perfect fit for Dustin Poirier, if he was in the One Piece world, would be Trafalgar D. Water Law. I think they're a good fit because Law is flashy, just like Dustin. They always put on a good show. They're kind of fan favorites in a way, right? A lot of people love him, a lot of fans love Dustin, but he can never quite reach that top. We all know that Law is not going to ever become King of the Pirates, but he wants to be King of the Pirates, but he's always going to play that second fiddle to Luffy. But we know that he will always be second to our favorite main character, just like Dustin will always be second to whoever is the lightweight champion. Number 8, Khamzat Chimaev. The Wolf Khamzat Chimaev is the overnight sensation who has taken the world by storm, right? With his relentless wrestling, he is extremely powerful, but we have yet to see his true potential. Khamzat had an enormous fan base going into UFC 279, but recently had many turn on him for missing weight in his last fight by an entire 8 pounds, which is a huge sign of disrespect in the UFC and in the fight world in general, right? He basically said, I don't care about making weight, I do what I want when I want, and a lot of people took that the wrong way, including myself. So I think that if Khamzat Chimaev was in One Piece, he would be Marshall D. Teach Blackbeard himself, right? I know this one sounds a little crazy, right? But hear me out. They both have incredible potential. Khamzat's the first, maybe since Conor McGregor, that we think can actually win 3 titles in 3 different weight divisions, which has never ever been done before. Pretty much becoming, king of the world or king of the pirates, which Marshall D. Teach wants to achieve as well. Also, Khamzat ground and pounds you into the abyss, and Blackbeard sucks you into the abyss with his darkness fruit power. So I believe these two have a lot in common. and Khamzat would be Blackbeard if he was in the One Piece world. Number 9, the notorious Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is the king of the UFC, right? He's accumulated millions upon millions of dollars, which all stem from him becoming the first ever double champion back in 2016. He was on the road to becoming the best fighter of all time, maybe, right? But he ran into a brick wall in the name of Khabib Nurmagomedov, who was the perfect foil to his abilities. It seems like Conor really hasn't been the same since that loss, right? And has been isolating himself on a super Lamborghini mega yacht, right? Sailing the seas, isolating himself from everybody. But for these reasons, I believe that if Conor was a One Piece character, he would be none other than God NL. You remember God NL from Skypiea? Yeah, that guy thought he was an invincible being above all others. He ruled an entire island. He was the king or god of his own world, right? He was also extremely powerful. He was an extremely powerful character with very super unique and deadly abilities, right? Similar to Conor, he seemed untouchable until his arch nemesis showed up, Monkey D. Luffy, and took it all away from him, right? So for that reason, I believe that Conor and Enel have a lot in common, and that is who Conor would be if he was in the One Piece world. And last but not least, we got Nate Diaz. That's right, Nate Diaz. He is a fighter you just have to love, right? He has an unshakable will, never backs down, never scared of a fight, and only wants to fight the best of the best. He doesn't act for the cameras, and he always keeps it 100% real. He was the most genuine fighter in the UFC, and people loved him for it. And now he's free from the UFC and will pursue other endeavors that will greatly benefit him and his team, right? So for these reasons, I believe that if Nate Diaz was in One Piece, he would be none other than Monkey D. Luffy himself, our favorite protagonist. This is why Luffy never backs down and will fight to his last dying breath, just like Nate Diaz. Very similar fighting styles, right? Luffy's 100% himself and will never change for nobody. He is his own man. He marches to the beat of his own drum. The people love him, right? He follows his heart, and he loves his teammates. He loves his crew, similar to how Nate Diaz loves his crew. He's just one of those guys, right? Nate Diaz, you can knock him down over and over, but he keeps getting back up, just like Monkey D. Luffy. And I think they have a lot in common, and I think that is who Nate Diaz would be if he was in the One Piece world. He would be our favorite main character, Monkey D. Monkey Diaz. Well, that's the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. If you enjoy One Piece, drop a like if you enjoy the UFC. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.